Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to be doing a super exciting flip. We are going to be doing quite an extreme makeover on this one, and you can see here I have something other than a dresser. This does not happen very often here on my channel, so I'm really excited to do something a little bit different for this one. I'm not even 100% sure what we would call this. I'm just gonna call it like a little cabinet, but we have big plans for this, which includes painting on some bone inlay patterns. Now this is something very out of my comfort zone, so this is going to be kind of a little small practice piece. We did pick this up at Goodwill for only $10, so if things go south, it's not going to be that big of a deal, but I do want to try this out. I have seen a few other people do it, and I'm super intrigued by the process and how it looks in the end. But this is a pretty solid wood piece, and it is in pretty good condition. It's just obviously really outdated. Now, whoever had this before me helped me out just a little bit and actually took the hardware off. This is supposed to have hardware on these two pieces right here, but it came without the hardware, so typically we would start with taking the hardware off, but because that's already done, we're gonna get started on cleaning the piece.
Instead of cleaning first, I decided to sand with a medium grit sandpaper to get that out of the way. The top was a little rough, and this just helped smooth the surface down. Once it was all sanded down, then I went in with cleaning the piece. I used Dawn dish soap and warm water. I also used a microfiber towel, which will help grabbing the dust that I had just created with sanding. After washing it down, I went back with just water to make sure that the soap was off completely. You want to make sure that that is not left on, otherwise it can leave little marks in your primer and paint. After the piece had dried off just a little bit, it was time to prime. I used my Zinsser 123 primer. I love this stuff, and I'll leave it down below in case you guys want to try it out for yourself. I made sure to prime everywhere. You don't always have to use primer, but when you don't know if you should or should not, I would always recommend doing it. It does a really good job in blocking and concealing stains and helping prevent bleed through.
Alright, so we are taking a pause on priming here because I decided I want to get the doors off. I want to get these hinges off so that I'm not skipping any of the priming, and I don't want to prime right over them. So we're going to go ahead and take these off, and then we'll continue priming.
Taking hinges off are really easy, and it intimidated me at first, but all you need is a screwdriver, and then you just unscrew everything and it falls right out. I don't know why it was so intimidating for me, but if you feel the same way, don't let that stop you from taking them out, because it will look a lot better without having paint all over them.
Now that both of these are off, we're going to continue priming. There is a little piece here that I'm not sure exactly where it came from. I feel like it might have been built in later, but I'm going to try to avoid priming this and just make sure to prime here and on the inside. Now, typically I'm not one to prime the inside of drawers or the inside of anything, but I'm just getting this feeling that I should be painting inside here, so we're gonna go ahead and paint inside, which is something that I usually don't do. Okay, so we actually just got this out. It was held by some hinges here, so really we don't need this piece anymore, and I think that's just gonna make it look a lot better.
Another reason why people will use primer is because it does provide a uniform surface for your paint to stick to. It's just going to make your paint look a lot better, and Make sure that you've covered any imperfections or future imperfections like bleed through.
So now that the primer is on, the piece is right behind me here, I want to show you guys the pattern that I'm going to be doing and the color for the pattern. So like I said, I'm going to be trying to do a bone inlay stencil here, and I actually went to Michael's and picked up a pattern here. They didn't have very many options. I did find that Amazon had a lot, but I didn't want to wait for shipping for this video. So this is the pattern that I got. It's a bunch of floral patterns here, so it's got all of this, and then it also has a few bigger ones and kind of like side pieces on the back here. But as far as color goes, I'm going to go with Restoration Bronze from Melange. I really love this paint. This has been my favorite color ever since I put it on those two dressers, and luckily I have some left, so I think that this is going to be perfect. This is going to be the color of the entire dresser, the whole body of the dresser, and then I think what we're gonna do is paint the stencil parts white. I think the white and the bronze will kind of like give off a really nice contrast, and then as far as like the hinges go and the hardware that we're gonna have to add, I think we'll go gold. And I'm not sure, I'm not 100% at this point, but as for color, I'm ready to put this on. So now that this primer is nice and dry, we're gonna get started on painting Restoration Bronze.
I do want to mention this, and I wasn't able to actually record it because of the angle, but make sure that you are painting above, like on the top surface as well, because if anyone ever were to bend their head down and look, it would look completely unfinished. So just make sure you're taking that extra step and always doing that when you have a piece like this. And actually what I did before I started painting anything else is I actually tipped the piece over upside down so that it was a lot easier to access. And then I was able to tip it back up and I wasn't worried about any wet paint. After the first coat was dry, I went straight into the second coat. Now, if you feel like it's not even or it's kind of rough or unleveled in some spots, please go ahead and sand in between. I didn't feel like I needed to with this paint, so I just kind of skipped that, but don't skip that if it's not smooth.
Okay, so it is a few days later. We've got the second coat on here and it's given really good coverage. And so now it's time to get started on the stencils. This is the stencil that I chose. It is a 7-piece kit. You can see all the pieces on the side here. It's from Art Minds. It was about $20 at Michael's, so not too bad for this project. I've never done stencils before, so this is a whole new learning curve for me, but I did actually try doing one of the sides here off camera just to see how to do it so I could figure it out and actually show you guys how to properly do that. So this is what that side looks like that I have already done. And now we just got to get started on doing the top here, and then the other side, I think I'm going to leave the inside alone, but make sure to do the little doors as well. So we're going to get started on doing this top here, and you guys will see exactly how I do that. So we're going to get started on the top here. This is the paint that I'm using, and we are doing gold for the stencils here. This is the Deco Art Americana Decor Metallics here. As I already mentioned, I did do this on this side here, so I'm liking how it's turning out. I really think that the gold accents this kind of army green. So we're going to continue with that, and what I'm thinking here is we're going to be putting these on the sides. It's more of like a little floral design here. So we're gonna put these on the sides, and then we're gonna try to fit 2 of these big ones on the top here. Now, I wanna start with this first so I can see how much room I have left over. So I'm just kind of lining it up with this little trim edge piece right here, so I can get it as straight as possible. And then you want to take whatever type of kind of painter's tape that you have. Usually it's a little bit thicker and blue, but I was able to get this at Michael's for a discounted price because I guess no one wants the orange. So I'm just going to take some of this and tape it down. Now when you're doing this, you don't want to cover up any of the stencils, so just getting it on the edge as much as you can, but still having it so that it gets held down. The first side is taped down. We're gonna do the same thing for the second side here. Not only is this keeping this in place, but keeping it down like this is also going to keep the excess paint from going underneath the stencil. So now that we have the first one, I'm gonna open up my paint here. And I've just got a brush, it's a little artist brush, not super expensive or anything, that I got from Michael's as well. And at this point, you really are just kind of tapping it on. So from what I've learned, I would recommend doing this more so tapping motion rather than just swiping it on, because that just swiping it on is going to encourage the paint to go underneath the stencil more. Now this paint is pretty thin, so you are still gonna be able to see a little bit of the army green color underneath it. I actually like the look of that, but if you don't like the look of that, I would recommend doing maybe like a white, because for something like this, you can't really go back and do a second coat unless you leave the stencil on. But that'll take hours, so I'm not going to do that. I'm okay with it showing through just a little bit. So now that we have everything covered there, I'm going to peel up this tape. You can wait for it to dry if you want to, but I'm not going to because that will take a long time.
So I'm just carefully removing the stencil and the tape. And we have our first stencil on the top done. Now I'm just gonna take this and apply it directly above. Try to get it as even as possible as you can the first time, just because once you lay it down, it's gonna already have some paint on your piece. And just like that, we're ready to do this second one. I'm doing it pretty thick. You could do a thin layer, but I just want to make sure that I got it all covered. Just like the last, we're just going to peel this up. And it did bleed through just a little bit, but that's okay. Once all of the stencils are on, it's going to be so busy that you won't even be able to see the little imperfections. Once you've got the taping down, it's really just all about picking the pattern that you're gonna go with and what stencil's gonna go where, and just making sure that you're not overlapping tape on wet paint. So just really picking what you want. Now that these are on, we're gonna go ahead and move over to the doors so that these can dry. Okay, so now the only thing that I'm going to be doing differently is starting in the middle of these doors. That way I can make sure everything is aligned straight. I should have done that with the top and the sides here, but it's a little too late for that. So I'm just gonna correct myself and do that here. If you guys are starting this project out, I would definitely recommend starting in the middle. This is the stencil that we're going to be starting with. I'm just taping this down like I've done with the rest, and then we'll get started. Now let's see how that turned out. Okay, so the next one that we're gonna do, I think, is this one. And now you can obviously see this is bigger than the drawer, so it is gonna cut off a little bit, but I think that'll be fine. This is all just in the fun, really, so I want to see. Okay, so they're still a little tacky, but I think dry enough to be able to lay this down. Just try to place that smudge in the middle there, and grab our tape. All right, got a feeling this one's not gonna be perfect, but we're gonna pull it up and see. Huh, actually that's not bad. Not bad. So now what we're gonna do is we're just gonna turn it the other way around and put it right on the opposite side here. Alright, I think I've got everything now. So again, the moment of truth, pulling it up. Not terrible. So now that this is drying, we're not quite finished with it, but it needs some time to dry. So we're gonna move to the top. So for the top here, what I think we're gonna do is have this big piece in the middle and then these on the sides, like the little corner pieces. I haven't thought too far into it, and maybe that is another thing that should be done, is have your layout planned before you start. But I didn't do that, so and just kind of take it step by step here. I'm thinking I want the top to be a little bit less busy than the sides and the doors, so we're gonna start with this and see what we come up with. Like the rest of the stenciling, I'm just gonna start by taping this big piece off. Right, so I think we have all of this covered. Now it's time to take it off. This is the biggest piece, so we gotta be super careful. I'm gonna start by peeling up this tape here. Hopefully I can get it all in one section. That does not look bad at all. At this point, I'm just continuing on with my pattern that I chose. It is going to be a lot less busy here, but I do want to mention, you can see on the bottom there is some spots that I need to go back with paint, so don't worry, I did do that. You just didn't see it in the video. I really love watching this bone inlay stencil pattern come together, and if you guys are enjoying that, please make sure to hit the like button, and if you aren't already, subscribe down below. It really does help our channel grow here. We are getting close to 2,000, which I think is crazy, and I'm so happy to have each one of you here. I decided that there needed to be a little bit more. Again, I'm not making it busy, but it just needed a little something extra, so I decided to add in these diamonds to fill the rest of the edging. Okay, so I just did these diamonds and this is how it's turning out. This top is starting to look really good here. I'm not sure if we're gonna be doing anything else. I know there's still a lot of open space here and here, but honestly, I really like how this top is turning out. So So I think for now we're just gonna leave this and we're gonna go back to the door fronts. I did get to finish the doors and this is what it's looking like. I didn't have to record it because it was getting repetitive, so now we're moving on to repeating this side again. We are trying to make it look exactly like the other side, so that is what we're doing. Okay, so I now have the frame part of this done and I have to go in and add the middle sections now. And we're making this identical to the other side. So it's gonna look a lot like this side here. Just like the last, I'm working my way through getting this side done. You will see that I was kind of holding my finger down on it a little bit because towards the end, the stencil was kind of lifting up in the middle and I couldn't really tape that down. So if you need to use your finger to help, go ahead and do that. Just make sure it's not in a wet place. Because I've shown you so much stenciling already, I'm just gonna leave it at right here. You can go back and look at what the other side looks like, but this is what it's looking like right now. The top is done, the sides are done, everything that's getting stenciled is done. So now it's time to top coat, and I'm using my polyacrylic like always. I'm just going to show you a little bit how I'm doing it. I'm using a foam roller. Typically I would mix some paint in here, but I decided not to because of the stencils. And I'm not going to show you any further than this. If you want a more in-depth video, you can look at just about any of my other videos I've got on here. This has been quite a long video, so I think it's time that we wrap it up and show you what it looks like with the doors on, with the hinges painted gold, and the hardware that we chose. So with that being said, let's get into the final reveal. If you like this type of content, please make sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss out on any other videos that I upload, as well as give this a thumbs up. And with that being said, I will see you guys in the next video.
Try to make it new. You can't fight it when it feels so true. You drive me crazy like no one.